Well, he's kind-hearted. He's a perfectionist. Sometimes that's a little difficult, but we had very little when we started out, and we had a struggle, but he always believed in putting a portion away and saving it. And his budgeting and his planning, I think that's a very strong part of his character. And he has helped many a person when they've needed him.
Probably the earliest memory I have of my grandparents is over at where I used to live in Kitchener. And, well, I just remember my grandpa sitting there with me and my brother, of course, and we were maybe 2 and 4 years old, or perhaps a little older. And he was sitting there teaching us the Great Lakes, and we'd be sitting there and think it was some kind of game. It was rather funny, spouting the Great Lakes back at him, and he'd just get a kick out of this, and he'd be teaching us things like the population of Waterloo, and he'd always, every time I'd see him, he'd say, what's the population of Waterloo? And we'd say, oh, it's 86,000, or whatever the current population was at the time.
Well, he's there for his children, and he puts them first, and no one could love his children more than he does.
The biggest piece of his personality I could tell you is that he's very determined and organized. For example, say if you're building a puzzle, or if you're almost done something and the end doesn't really matter, so you just quit early, he'll stay there and he'll finish every single little bit of anything that has to be done. If there's one corner piece missing, you've done it, he'll just step in and take that extra step, and that character that he has is generated through every aspect of his life, in terms of working, being a hard worker, of course doing taxes for other people. I remember watching him briefly one day when I was over at his place, and just he thought he had almost done someone's taxes, and all of a sudden something popped up and it was a bit less, and he said, oh, where did that come from? And he maybe spent another hour or two trying to figure out how much of a tax deductible he could get this guy, and just sheer determination on, client, a friend, I'm not sure who it was, but nonetheless he put forth so much effort into it that it was really really astonishing in my eyes.
I know the feelings that he's going through, because I went through them too, and I've told him that, and I said, all you got to do is just go through as if it's a job you're going to do and you're coming home. Just keep thinking that all the time. I said that's the only thing I had on my thoughts when I was in the Army. I didn't want to join the Army. I hated it, but I couldn't wait until I got home to be discharged, and people were disappointed that I didn't want to talk about what I did. It wasn't my cup of tea. I just hated it, and I don't like anything about the Army at all. I just did it because it's my duty. So the duty's paid. So
Adam does like the Army, though.
Yeah.
And that was his choice, and he became a very fine young man.
I remember before he joined the Army, he come to Grandpa to ask me about the Army. So I told him all the good things that all the happy times I had and all the fun we had, and so after 6 months in the Army, he says, Grandpa, when do the good times come?
And the book about Don, that was a little bit harder because I couldn't get into his head. I had to go by what he told me. And in discussing this, it brought out things that he had buried and put aside for a long time. So putting the two together, I think our children have a better understanding of who we are and what we are. He wasn't for a long time, but now a little bit more. Yeah. But we're not the type that kiss in public or hold hands in public or
Well, what do we do
anything.
now?
Don, we've had our ups and downs. We've had some pretty bumpy roads, but I'm so glad we got through them all because life is great.